ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Over 150 people killed in deadly attacks by insurgents in Burkina Faso's northern region. Malian army arrests colonel after book alleges abuses in the military. Nigerian government tightens security following the increase in food theft.
It's a very serious issue where people forget that looting is actually a crime, but they can't help it because they are hungry.
And Gambian authorities claim that 90% of cannabis in the country is produced in Senegal, expressing concern over increasing rates of drug abuse and crime.
Locally, the problem of the Gambia is cannabis because we are closer to the region where these drugs are cultivated. More than 90% of all the cannabis, that is in the Gambia here or abused here are grown in the southern part of Senegal, Casamance.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. Well, let's begin in Burkina Faso, where a regional official on Sunday confirmed over 150 people have been killed in deadly attacks by insurgents in the country's northern region. Ali Benjamin Coulibaly, who is a public prosecutor, disclosed that the attack occurred a week ago and targeted 3 villages located in Yatanga province. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
The attackers a week ago invaded Komsilga, Nordin and Soro, killing around 170 people, according to the public prosecutor who cited reports he received from sources. Ali Benjamin Coulibaly fears that the toll could be higher, with the majority of the victims being women and children. While several others were left injured across the 3 villages, the prosecutor of Wahiguya confirmed heavy material damage caused by the gunmen. The prosecutor further explained that his office immediately ordered an investigation and appealed to the public for any useful information. The state authorities are yet to issue an official statement on the occurrences, but local security sources said the attacks were separate from the killings at a mosque and a church in northern Burkina Faso a week ago. The 2 separate violent acts claimed more than 40 lives. Earlier on Saturday, the Burkinabe Army on state television announced it neutralized 27 terrorists, including a commander from the terrorist organization GSIM. Meanwhile, security forces in Ouagadougou and other administrative regions have been placed under high alert after a call by the Burkinabe Chief of General Staff, Brigadier General Celestin Sampore. In a statement, the Army Chief recommends dissuasive patrols, systemic checks, and searches of people and vehicles because an increase in the risk of kamikaze attacks is to be feared.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there. Exiled Togolese opposition figure Gabriel Messa Agbeyome Kojo has been reported dead. He was appointed Prime Minister in his late 30s, and after serving as the President of the National Assembly, he had a fallout with President Gnassingbé Eyadema after requesting reforms within the Rassemblement the People Togolese RPT, and went into exile for the first time in June 2002. In 2020, faced foreign Gnassingbé in the presidential election. Placed second behind Gnassingbé in this election, Agbeyome Kojo contested the results, believed he had won the election, and went into exile. Kojo died aged 70, 2 months after his mentor, Philippe Fanoko Bodzoro. In the meantime, a colonel in Mali's army whose recent book alleges soldiers' abuse of civilians has been arrested in Bamako. A military source and his entourage said Sunday that Colonel Alpha Yaya Tsangari was detained late Saturday, a day after a defense ministry statement denounced passages in his book. A member of Tsangari's family confirmed this arrest in Eastman. Ogeberika completes the story.
Friday's Defense Ministry statement denounced passages in the book that alleged rights violations by the army with the complicity of the military hierarchy. The ministry denounced what it said were false accusations against the army. In his book on Mali, The Challenge of Terrorism in Africa, published at the end of 2023, the colonel quotes reports of army abuses of civilians during anti-terrorist operations. A February 24 presentation of the book in Bamako appears to have caused a stir among the military regime that has run Mali since 2020. Jihadist violence that started in northern Mali in 2012 spread to the center of the country in 2015 when Katiba Masina, an Al-Qaeda-affiliated group, was established, led by the Fulani preacher Amadou Kufa. Attacks by armed groups reached unprecedented levels in the center of the country in the final month of 2023, according to humanitarian and security sources. On February 1, UN Rights Chief Volker Turk reported what he said were credible allegations that Malian armed forces, accompanied by foreign military, summarily executed at least 25 people in January. Since the junta took power, they have turned away from former colonial power France and pivoted towards Russia, both politically and militarily.
Ogabierica found that report. Meanwhile, reports just reaching us have it that some petrol tankers traveling from Niamey to neighboring Mali were burned by unknown gunmen. This incident took place between Congo Chire and Kotugui, 35 kilometers from the town of Ayoro in the Tilaberi region in western Niger. According to official counts, 6 tanks were burned while 6 lives were lost and 1 person was seriously injured. Authorities say the pursuit of the criminals is underway. Located to the west of Niger, the municipality of Ayoro is one of the localities in the Tilaberi region heavily impacted by insecurity, a situation that has affected many young people engaged in income-generating activities in the area. WDL's Augustine Nicoli has the rest of the story.
In the Ayoro municipality, the adverse effects of insecurity weigh heavily on income-generating activities conducted by the local youth, as highlighted by Musa Doma, the mayor of Ayoro.
Young individuals were engaged in motorcycle-related work, such as the kabu-kabu and other activities to secure income for supporting their families. Unfortunately, all these opportunities have disappeared. Motorcycles are no longer available and job opportunities have dwindled significantly.
This insecurity, persisting over the years, has resulted in widespread unemployment among the young population, a concerning trend emphasized by Ibrahim Seidu, the president of Ayoro's Youth Department Council.
Security has had a big impact on our activities because these impacts are unintentional, and especially when you understand that every time there are attacks here and there, whatever activity you are in, if you learn that there's an attack somewhere, you don't have peace of mind. It created a psychosis in our head.
Amidst these challenges, efforts are on our way to prevent the recruitment of young individuals by terrorist armed groups. These initiatives, supported by non-governmental organizations, are spearheaded by Musa Doma, the mayor of Ayoro.
In set 3, we emphasize the importance of staying home rather than risking lives. Collaborating with NGOs and partners, we seek solutions to encourage them to remain home. We also actively raise awareness, hoping for an improvement in the situation.
However, the state of emergency declared by authorities in various localities within the Tilaberi region, including Ayoro, exacerbates the difficulty of engaging in diverse income-generating activities led by the young people.
Augustine Curley filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now let's bring you some stories from Nigeria. First, the central bank of the country has revoked the licenses of 4,173 bureau de change operators over their failure to comply with regulatory provisions. The list of affected BDC operators was released on the bank's website. According to the CBN spokesperson Sidi Akama, the institutions did not meet requirements such as payment of necessary fees, submission of returns, and compliance with guidelines and regulations. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja completes the story.
The Apex Bank exercised its powers under the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act to take this action. The decision, however, has received mixed reactions, with some experts applauding it as a way to stabilize the forex market, while others criticized it for potentially increasing black market operators and worsening unemployment. Uche Uwaleke is a capital market professor and president of the Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. He supports the revocation.
There is need to sanitize the BDC segment of the forex market, and I'm happy the central bank has risen up to the challenge. A situation in which you have as many as 6,000 bureau de change. Of course, even for purposes of supervision, there's no way it can be effective. So I'm happy to note that the central bank is moving in that direction, revoking the licenses of 4,173 BDCs, and the circular was very clear as to why the licenses were being revoked.
Renowned economist Professor Tayo Bello has however frowned at the massive revocation of over 4,000 bureau de change licenses, saying the mode adopted by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, is like killing an ant with a sledgehammer. Professor Bello added that this development will only swell up the number of black market operators, as those whose licenses were withdrawn will find their way into the black market forex trading. This, he said, will further compound the challenge that the Apex Bank is trying to fix. Speaking further, Professor Bello said banks are also culprits in this regard, as they cannot be isolated from the fraud that BDCs were accused of. He therefore called for holistic investigation by the CBN and sanctions for banks and officials found culpable in this act as well. The CBN had recently introduced a draft guideline for BDC operations across the country. Major provisions introduced to the guidelines of the BDCs include the introduction of a 2 billion naira minimum share capital for Tier 1 BDCs, limiting buying and selling forex in cash by BDCs to $500 and a $10,000 year limit for school fees, among others. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Staying in Nigeria, authorities say it will tighten security at government food stores around the country amid a looting crisis. Recently, there have been increased cases of attacks on warehouses to steal food items as people struggle to buy food and pay for services. Following the looting on Sunday, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, said it was increasing security to forestall any breaches at its offices and warehouses nationwide. This move is coming as residents of Abuja broke into and looted food items, including bags of maize, at a facility in Nigeria's federal capital. As a result of the economic crisis in the country, prices of goods and services have risen significantly, with inflation reaching nearly 30%. However, social commentator Tochi Emmanuel Ifemine blames the system.
The recent looting of warehouses, trailers carrying food, it's a very serious issue where people forget that looting is actually a crime, but they can't help it because they are hungry. And I hope you know that once a society degenerates to this is a very serious red flag of a serious indicator of a society. So for the first time, or not the first time really, but because it happened during the time of after COVID, when houses where food were stored for palliatives, almost randomly, almost at the same time, almost simultaneously, were raided across the nation, showing us that there was actually poverty in the land. And between that time and currently now in 2024, that report that says that Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world, and which we are also hearing we have what is called multidimensional poverty. Now, this is a stark reality of what it looks like.
According to Mr. Ifemine, there is a need for the government to inject more funds into the economy, especially for local businesses to thrive, as the lack of this is strangling people's purchasing power.
So the current administration are trying what I call monetary policies, which has nothing to do with the micro and the macro economics, because the micro and the macro economics are actually what you do on the streets to help small scale businesses, people who are trying to survive, those little micro business that people actually do and get a living, in which if they get a living, they can actually, in their multidimensional way across the country, even contribute towards the GDP.
Tochukwu Emmanuel Femina is a social commentator. Now, a delegation of Nigerian custom officials arrived in the commercial city of Cotonou to further enhance discussions on the major oil pipeline project between Benin and Niger. Discussions could also extend to the reopening of the border between Niger and Benin, which is still closed despite the lifting of ECOWAS sanctions imposed on Niger. Recall, Benin, the member of ECOWAS, closed its border with Niger for 7 months. David Vincent completes the story.
This visit to Cotonou by a large delegation from Niger's customs will last a week. The delegation is made up of 5 senior custom officers responsible for regulation, cooperation, control, and the facilitation of economic partnership. The Nigerians are there officially to discuss the pipeline that will carry oil from Agadem in Niger to the terminal station at Semekoji in Benin. The economic stakes are high for both countries, with production expected to reach 90,000 barrels a day. In Cotonou, the Nigerian officials will have working sessions, meetings, and site visits. The issue of reopening the Niger border with Benin could also be addressed. It is still closed despite the lifting of ECOWAS sanctions imposed on Niger. Recall, Benin closed its borders with Niger after the military coup on the orders of the Economic Community of West African States, an organization of which it is a member.
David Vincent found that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Over 150 people killed in deadly attacks by insurgents in Burkina Faso's northern region. Malian army arrests colonel after book alleges abuses in the military. Nigerian government tightens security following the increase in food theft. And still ahead, Gambian authorities claim that 90% of cannabis in the country is produced in Senegal, expressing concern over increasing rate of drug abuse and crime. We do have a guest interview, press review, and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News, Facebook, and on WADR.org. Authorities in the Gambia have claimed that 90% of cannabis drugs in the country are produced in the Senegalese region of Casamance, with the greater percentage being transferred to the northern part of Senegal. They have expressed worry over the increasing rate of substance abuse, which they are linking to a surge in crime. Meanwhile, the authorities have sounded the alarm on the emerging new ecstasy drug, Kush, imported from Sierra Leone. Sankli Janko completes the story.
The Gambia is notorious as a transit point for cocaine, primarily originating from South America and destined for Europe due to its proximity to the Western world. However, the most widely used illicit drug, cannabis, according to authorities, is mainly produced and imported from the Senegalese region of Casamance. Abdoulaye Gassama is the head of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia.
Locally, the problem of the Gambia is cannabis because we are closer to the region where these drugs are cultivated. More than 90% of all the cannabis, that is in the Gambia here or abused here are grown in the southern part of Senegal, Casamance.
In recent years, the Gambia has witnessed the emergence of a substance known as Kush, a drug wreaking havoc in the West African sub-region, particularly in Sierra Leone and Guinea. This deadly drug was first detected in the Gambia in 2022. The substance is believed to be imported into the country from Sierra Leone.
And most of the traffickers, initially those who were venturing into this, many of them were Sierra Leonean nationals. This Kush is prevalent in Sierra Leone. We could say the origin is coming from Sierra Leone.
The prevalent use of drugs has been linked to an increase in the crime rate in the Gambia, including robberies and murders, phenomena that were previously rare in the West African nation. Dempeso serves as the Crime Management Director of the Gambia Police.
If you go to the general statistic we have on daily basis, mostly you registered 20 breaking cases across the country. The murder cases they're talking about is happening, but all these murder cases happening, almost all the accused persons are apprehended by the police. And these murder cases are domestic crimes. It happens at homes, with the security are not present.
According to a recent survey conducted by Afrobarometer, more than half of Gambians expressed feeling insecure due to the rise in the crime rate, including murder. Adding to reports, the Gambia has recorded more murder cases during President Barrow's 7-year reign than in ex-President Jammeh's entire 22-year regime. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankli Janko reporting from Banjul.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Well, let's head back to Abuja as we join Usman Mara for the newspaper review.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. Let's begin with the Guardian newspaper, leading with this update. Nigeria's terrorism index. Terror attacks decline amid new recruitments rising in violent conflicts. Teachers endless wait for federal government's promises of improved salary welfare. Hardship, military, paramilitary to distribute food as hoodlums loot warehouses. Other stories, blame governors for restructuring delay. Economic downturn. This is coming from the federal government. Very quickly, we move to the Nation newspaper, and the Nation today is leading with Nigeria clearing obstacles to investment, says President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. With a rider, country offers best return on business in the world. Another rider, pacts signed with Qatar in education, solid minerals, others. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper, leading today with food crisis, tight security at National Emergency Management Agency stores as hoodlums loot FCT warehouses. With rider, troops foil attack on Abuja warehouse, arrest 5. Hoodlums cut away rice, others. Another rider, policemen deployed in Bayelsa, Kaduna, Delta, Osun warehouses. Reforms not meant to inflict hardship. This is coming from the Vice President. This is also another update from the story yesterday regarding looting of warehouses and National Emergency Management Agency. Although their warehouses are not affected, they are taking precautionary measures by deploying more security at their warehouses in those states mentioned. Of course, the police also, of course, is on the trail of those who carried out the attacks. 5 were said here to have been arrested, and a couple of some of the items looted have also been recovered. And this is the much we have for you on today's edition of Press Review segment from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. My name is Usman Umar, and it's back to you in the studios.
Many thanks, Usman, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, we remain in Nigeria, where a recent move by the country's central bank to revoke the operating licenses of 4,173 Bureau de Change BDC operators in a bid to curb illicit forex deals and to sanitize the sector has generated mixed reactions. Our guest, Uche Uwalike, capital market professor and president of the Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria, wades in this interview with WDL's Usman Umar.
Yes, I think it will have a salutary impact on the forex markets. It's one reform, if you like. You know, we have been clamoring, a lot of people have been clamoring. There's need to sanitize the BDC segment of the forex markets, and I'm happy the central bank has risen up to the challenge. It's all in a bid to sanitize that space. Okay, a situation in which you have as many as 6,000 Bureau de Change. Of course, even for purposes of supervision, there's no way it can be effective. So I'm happy to note that the central bank is moving in that direction, revoking the licenses of 4,173 BDCs. And if you read the circular was very clear, you know, as to why the licenses were being revoked. A number of them, or these particular BDCs, were in breach of, one regulation or the other, particularly to do with transparency. That's why you hear a number of them, persistently failing to submit, render returns to the central bank as required. So I think it's moving in the right direction, including the attempt to reduce the number. I'm sure the next leg of it now will be to get them to recapitalize, get them to, ensure that, by the time they finish the M&A process, I expect the number of BDCs in the country to drop. And it drops to a manageable size that the central bank can effectively oversight, and supervise. So I think it's a step in the right, direction. Yes, no doubt, a lot of lapses, before now, which the central bank, the new management is trying to, deal with. Yes, also including the case of when he talked about, being aggressive regulatory regime. I think I support that. Fractions and should be dealt with. Central bank should be able to, wield the hammer, sanction financial institutions that are in breach of regulation. So I think it's a step in the right direction.
What then would be your response to those who say this move should have actually started from the banks, because they believe that banks are the institutions that aid and abet this fraud that the CBN is trying to fight?
Yes, but again, there's a saying in economics, the classicals will tell you, supply creates its own demand. When you have so many of them, of course, a lot of them become channels or avenues for illicit transactions, illicit flows, particularly when it's becoming difficult for the central bank to supervise them in view of their unwieldy number. So by the time the number is reduced, central bank will now be in a position to supervise and ensure that all the KYC checks, due diligence, are done by these people, when dealing with their clients or their customers.
That was Professor Uche Uwaleke, the president of the Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. And here is Sankle Janko with sports news.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The CAF African Schools Football Championship WAFU qualifiers drew an exciting close on Sunday. 3 matches as Senegal and Gambia were crowned champions in the boys and girls respective divisions of the competition, CAF reports. The 3-day youth football competition was hosted at Mauritania's stade Cheikh Ould Badiane in Nouakchott between 1 and 3 March 2024. Senegal were crowned champions in the boys category following a contest with Cape Verde, Gambia, Guinea and host Mauritania. Meanwhile, the Gambia won the girls category after a 1-0 win against neighbors Senegal in the final on Sunday. This followed the well-contested matches that also included host Mauritania, Cape Verde and Guinea. Gambia and Senegal will represent West African Football Union WAFU Zone A in the finals of the CAF School Championship as winners of their respective categories in their zone. The finals, which will bring together winners of all the zones in Africa, will be announced in due course. And Cote d'Ivoire's ASEC Mimosas is the only West African team to book qualification to the quarterfinals of the CAF Champions League. The Ivorian side topped Group B with 11 points despite losing away to former champions Wydad Casablanca, who crashed out following Simba's heavy 6-0 win over Jwaneng Galaxy in the group's other game, according to CAF official website. Ghana's Madema crashed out at the group stages. Then that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukudi and Maudaju for the technical assistance. Let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WDL News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a flagship health program, Well Body with Ogubi Erika. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many